Rise up, live joy your way. From emotional intelligence through cognitive distortions, certified life and wellness coach Kamini Wood is on a mission to help people see the magnificence of their own unique human spirit. Through these small bites of self-visualization and self-confidence, you can have healthy relationships, success in business and career, and live the life you want to live. Rise up, live joy your way.
Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Rise Up, Live Joy Your Way, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening. I just want to say thank you for taking some time out of your day to spend with me. And today I want to talk about the buzzword burnout. I think it's been used more and more, and rightfully so, because burnout can be actually very dangerous and really negative. It can have a negative effect on our emotional, mental, and physical health. According to recent studies, burnout is more than just being tired. It really is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion, and it can be caused by excessive and prolonged stress. The World Health Organization has actually recognized it as an occupational phenomenon at this point in time. When we think about burnout, oftentimes people just think that it is simply being overscheduled, but it's more than that in terms of what factors contribute to burnout. So I wanted to just talk through some of those contributing factors. Yes, of course, the very first one is being overworked and overbooked. Constantly taking on too many tasks, long hours, being chronically overscheduled with either work commitments or personal commitments. It leaves little time for that rest and recovery. And what ends up happening is not just physical exhaustion, but actually people will see decreased productivity and that sense of being overwhelmed, which can actually accelerate things like anxiety or depression, which eventually leads to burnout. So one of the things to really pay attention to when we're thinking about this is, how often am I saying yes when I need to say no? A second one that doesn't often get talked about is lack of appreciation. And what this is referring to is when an individual is putting effort towards something or putting in achievement towards a goal, and they're not being acknowledged for their contributions, or they don't feel valued. So oftentimes in coaching conversations, this will come up around people feeling that they're unseen or undervalued. And this over time can create a result of feelings of resentment. It can decrease motivation, and that all can eventually lead to burnout. And I'm actually seeing this not just in adults, but also in teenagers. I have many teenagers that are involved in things like sports and dance, and they are routinely talking about they're putting in the effort and they're not receiving any positive feedback or appreciation for the work that they're putting in, and they're starting to not enjoy that thing that they've been involved in. So whether it be dance or the sport itself, they start losing their spark for it. And really what they're experiencing is burnout. Number 3 is not feeling like you're part of the tribe or part of the community. And that lack of social support leads to feeling isolated and disconnected from either your colleagues or your peers. And it also involves not feeling like you belong. And when we think about human needs, that need of knowing that you belong and knowing that you matter is such a huge part of just basic human needs. And so when we don't have that social support, it makes us feel as though we don't matter. And without that, we may feel lonely, we may feel unsupported. That also leads to more stress and anxiety, which can lead to burnout. Another one that really comes up a lot when talking about burnout is this idea of lack of agency or autonomy. And what that really is talking about is when individuals feel like they have very little control over their work environment or very little control over their tasks or schedules, and they feel micromanaged. It can really lead to frustration and a sense of helplessness because they don't feel like they have the ability to own any part of their day. And that leads to lack of job satisfaction, and it can increase stress. And eventually lead to burnout. This happens routinely. I hear about this with my clients all the time when they're reporting to me that they feel micromanaged at work. What they really are reporting is that the people who are managing them are constantly telling them every little thing that they need to do, and that they don't even have any ownership over their day. And that lack of control over your entire workday can really stress an individual out, which will eventually lead to burnout. The fifth one that I wanted to talk about was this misalignment of values. And what that is all about is when your personal values do not match the demands of the workplace that you're in, and or even in your personal life, there could be a misalignment of values. And that can create an internal conflict, and that dissonance creates stress. And that ongoing stress, that chronic stress, we know will lead to burnout, because it's really difficult to reconcile when your values do not match where you're spending most of your time. And then, of course, insufficient resources, where there's just a lack of adequate resources to get the work done. And there's this idea that it all has to be done by you. And so when you don't have enough resources, it can force individuals to stretch themselves. So now that it ties into being overbooked. But when you're stretched so thin, it leads to frustration, and it leads to stress, and it leads to just exhaustion, which all leads to burnout. And these factors are so complex, they do end up intermixing with each other, because burnout's not any one thing. So the question then becomes, well, how do we work through this? I mean, the challenges of life are going to show up, but it really comes down to making sure that we're really owning our boundaries. So knowing what works for you and what doesn't, and being able to communicate those. So paying attention to when you're saying yes, when you need to say no, paying attention to overbooking yourself or overcommitting, knowing what your boundaries are in terms of what help you need, and being able to communicate that. And it's really important also to pay attention to your own inner voice. If your inner critic is nagging you and telling you that what you're doing is not enough or you're not good enough, it's important to address that as well. Because if we don't pay attention to what the inner voice is saying, that can also lead to burnout. Because, for instance, if you are struggling to feel like you matter or that you are accepted within the community, and then your inner critic is telling you that you don't matter, those two things together are going to create just a firestorm towards burnout. And so it's important when we're thinking about burnout and how it can affect you, that eventually this is going to spill over into your physical health, but it's also going to start to take a toll on your relationships. And ultimately, it's going to take a toll on how you see yourself. So it's important to pay attention to the signs of burnout when you're starting to feel that emotional drain or that mental drain or physical drain. It's important to slow it down and to take stock of what's happening. And it is important to also give yourself and practice self-compassion. Oftentimes, high achievers are their own harshest critic. And so it's important to pay attention to what's going on and be kind rather than judgmental. Get curious rather than judgmental, and allow yourself some time to reflect on what's happening and see if maybe you're expecting a little too much of yourself, and see where you can set some boundaries. If you would like to talk about this or anything else that could be holding you back or keeping you stuck or stagnant, feel free to book a time with me at any time at coachwithkamini.com. And until next time, stay well.
Thank you for listening to Rise Up, Live Joy Your Way. For more information, book a chat with Kamini at www.chatwithkamini.com or visit her website at www.kaminiwood.com. You can also find Kamini on Facebook or Instagram. Username It's Authentic Me. Thank you for listening.